Now that we're talking about employees, you've got to learn to hire, manage, and lead. It's the only way to grow a company beyond a tech with helpers. I don't care how good you are, you can only bootstrap and renegade to a certain point before you break. And I think most of you in here, one of the reasons you're not growing is not because you don't know how to do marketing, like Colin was saying. It's not because you don't know what to do. It's you just can't get the time to do it. And that's because you still have too much on your plate. I think that's like the biggest reason, really. You're not dumb. You people in here are not dumb. I mean, you're in Producers Club. I know you know this stuff. But you're still trying to do all the sales and do all the marketing and all the tech help. You need to start looking and investing in higher quality people and go out and start finding those people who can take big chunks of management off your plate. All right? So you got to do it whether you like it or not. You got to lead by example. Again, you cannot be giving yourself timeouts and I'll get to it laters and I'm going to come in late and I'm going to half-ass a project, because in our team we set goals as a company and I state what my goals are, and they're not easy goals. You don't want to give yourself a cakewalk like, oh, I'll get a newsletter out. You know, that's a bullshit goal, right? It's got to be a tough one, and you got to put it out there for your employees, and you got to report to them every week, just like you asked for them to do that to you. You know, you want to be held accountable? Be accountable to each other as a team and your employees. They want to see you working. They want to see you improving. They want to see you doing those things. So keep in mind, you got to lead by example, and it's not your job to motivate them either. Another thing, people come to me and they say, how do you motivate your salespeople? How do you motivate your employees? And the answer is you don't. Mike Ditka said this at boot camp years ago, if you remember, and I think it was John Matazzi who asked the question. John said, or I think it was John, or somebody said something to the effect about how do you motivate your players to win? And without skipping a beat, he said, we don't motivate. If they need motivation, they're cut from the team. And see, that's a really good line. And when he said it, I wrote it down and I never forgot it. If they need motivation, they need to be cut from the team. It is not your job to motivate them. Now, you can incentivize them. That's good. Salespeople, money-driven. Hey, you do this, we give you a little more money. That's the kind of motivation. But doing pep talks and trying to, make them feel better and hang motivational posters in the hallways and that kind of bullshit, forget it. Right? That's not your job. But I will say it is your job not to demotivate them. And demotivating them is giving them a goal, or more important, not giving them goals, not giving clear instructions, harassing them about things that you've not coached them about. Right? Nobody likes to get a speeding ticket when there's been no speeding sign posted. Right? So you can't get mad at them if you didn't give them clear instructions. So that will demotivate them. And also, don't be cheap. Hire top performers for key roles and compensate them really well. All right? And you never want to lose an employee for a couple $1,000. Right? You want to try to engineer your pricing strategy and your profitability so that you can pay slightly more than the market average. Like for appointment setters, the average telemarketer in Nashville earns about $35,000 a year, $40,000, somewhere in there. Our on-target earnings is $52,000. Right? So they all hit it? No, but they have to be 100%. But they typically land somewhere between, somewhere around 45, right? So far, because actually the truth of the matter is some of them actually were on that, and those people we promoted up. So don't be cheap. Hire top performers and compensate them well. And you got to clarify the roles, responsibilities, standards, and then be willing to enforce them. So don't just create a scorecard and then never look at it with them. Create a scorecard and go through it with them. And once a quarter, here's a good practice. We were talking about this yesterday. Here's a good practice. Once a quarter, when you meet with your team, have them, prior to coming to the meeting, tell them, go look at your scorecard and come to the meeting with anything you feel that you're doing that needs to be added on there, that you've started doing or you think you should be doing. And then bring to the meeting anything you feel like you should not be doing, or you've stopped doing, or you're not doing well. And then we as a company, we can decide, do we need to hire somebody to take some of these roles off? Do we need to give some support? Maybe we need to stop doing things. Make them own their scorecard, but you got to have it. You got to make sure that you enforce compliance of the scorecard. And so one of the things, I had an employee once I had to let go, and she just wasn't doing her scorecard. And we told her, you're not performing your job on the scorecard as outlined. And when we let her go, she says, I don't even know where my scorecard is. That was her bullshit excuse, which she could not use as an excuse. But so that's why I implemented once a quarter. It's their job to look at it. So it's now in my company, it's the employee's job to own their scorecard. Once I create it, and I co-create it with them, because like when I hired Will, who's now running MSP Success Magazine, I outlined it. I said, here's the results, here's the revenue you have to produce. Like there's certain things like, hey, if I hire you and pay you this is what I need. That's like for me. But then the rest of it was kind of like setting goals. I outlined it, and then I sat down with them and said, tell me what makes sense. Tell me what doesn't make sense. Let's discuss it. And that way they're involved in creating their job role, and then they're involved in owning it as well. So that's something that's worked really well for me.